Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki Jai, Gornitai ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Canto 10, chapter 56, and the text is 27. It is on the board and chanted responsibly. Tvam hi vishva shrijam shrasta srishtanamapi yaksha sat kalaha kalayatam ishaha para atma tat atmanan tvam hi vishvasrijam shri shrasta shrishtanam api yaksha sat kalaha kalayatam ishaha para atma tathatmanan tvam hi vishvasrijam shasta srishtanam api yaksha sat kalaha kalayatam ishaha para atma tathatmanan. Please chant. Tvam hi vishvasrijam shrasta shrishtanam api yaksha sat kala kalayatam isha para atma tathatmanam tvam hi vishvasrijam shasta shrishtanam api yaksha sat kala kalayatam isha para atma tathatmanam tvam hi vishvasrijam shasta shrishtanam api yaksha sat kala kalayatam ishaha para atma tatmatmanam tvam hi vishvasrijam shasta shrishtanam api yaksha sat kala kalayatam isha para atma tatatmanan. Word for word. Tvam, you, he, indeed, Vishva, of the universe, Srijam, of the creators, Shrasta, the creator, Shrishtanan, of created entities, Api, also. Yat, which. Cha, and. Sat, underlying substance. Kalaha, the subduer. Kalayatam, of subduers. Isha, the Supreme Lord. Computer likes to change things into English. Para-atma, the Supreme Soul. Tata, also. Atmanam, of all souls. And the translation for text 27. You are the ultimate creator of all creatures of the universes and of everything created. You are the underlying substance. You are the subduer of all subduers, the supreme Lord and supreme soul of all souls. And the purport, the BPT purport. As Lord Krishna states in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 125.42, I'm sorry, it'll be hard for me to read because it's a little bit small for me. Death himself moves about out of fear of me. Om Gyana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurimilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitanscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapsa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpa Taribhya Shakripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Roma Padaswami Iti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is Jambavan addressing Lord Krishna. And there's a rather fascinating commentary on the part of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this particular text, where he's indicating the thinking of Jambavan, and that thinking is one in which Jambavan is making a comparison between the Supreme Lord and himself. So the commentary from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, showing these particular expressions of Jambavan, making this kind of comparison, is as follows. Jambavan said, you are the creator of all creators of the universe, and I am only the creation of Brahma. You alone are the cause, Sat, of all the entities created within the universe. Brahma and other creators are merely secondary creators. Of destroyers, you are time, the ultimate destroyer, Kala, capable of doing it, whereas I am subject to annihilation. You are the supreme soul of all living entities, that's jivas, whereas I am only one of the jivas. So giving the expanded picture and focusing in on what his position is, just the singular in all cases. So this insight on the part of Jambavan that Lord Krishna is the creator of the creators of the universe, and so is the cause of all living entities, is borne out in the words of the creator under Lord Brahma. So this is how Lord Brahma puts it. So taking into account Jambavan's words that Lord Krishna is the creator within the universe, and that Brahma and other creators are merely secondary creators. Here's how Lord Brahma views it. He puts it this way, and this is from Sri Brahma Samhita, text 11. The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands and thousands of heads, eyes, and hands. He is the source of thousands and thousands of avatars. In his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands and thousands of individual souls. So that's Lord Brahma, a secondary creator, talking of Lord Krishna or Mahavishnu. And the Sanskrit for that is text 11, Sri Brahma Samhita. Sahara Sirsha Purda, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapat, Sahasra Bahur Vishvatma, Sahasram Saha, Sahasra Su. And Srila Prabhupada puts it this way. So it's on this point of, Mahavishnu and he being the creator. The Lord expands himself in two ways. By personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separated expansions are living entities. So Srila Prabhupada is doing the breakdown. There's two kinds of expansions. And everything created rests on the gigantic Virat or universal form of the Lord. So that's Srila Prabhupada doing the breakdown. Two categories of expansions. The plenary expansions means that every expansion is actually complete and full. And then there's the personal plenary expansions, the Vishnu Tattvas. And then the separated expansions. Those are all the living entities. So Srila Prabhupada describes, and this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 3, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 8. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Super Soul. He's the soul, he's the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation which thus flourishes. So echoing again that point that everything created rests on the gigantic Virat or universal form of the Lord. Now Srila Prabhupada writes that the statement that the Lord is the creator of creators of the universal affairs, and this is how he puts it, and this is coming, I think, from Krishna book, yes. It's very instructive to the ordinary man who is amazed by the activities of a person with an exceptional brain, as Srila Prabhupada. In the same way, that Jambavan is stating that he is but a creation of Lord Brahma. So Srila Prabhupada writes that the ordinary man is surprised to see the invention of a great scientist. And although the scientist may be the creator of many wonderful things, and that's confirmed by Jambavan. Krishna is the creator of the scientist. So not to forget that, remember, creator of innumerable individual souls. And Krishna is the creator of not only one scientist, but of millions and trillions of scientists all over the universes. So that's Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book, just putting it into perspective. In both how in sort of one's own limited sphere, one may be quite amazed seeing a scientific creation, and then putting it into perspective of actually Krishna is the creator of the brain of that scientist, and not only that one scientist, but millions and trillions of scientists. So now, if we were to look at the invention of a scientist, because, we want to test out what Srila Prabhupada is saying, I came across an article in the Smithsonian, which was called Scientific Inventions of 2021. And there's an example of an invention that originally was made by Tesla. So we have the Tesla car, but this is the man, Tesla. He invented this in 1920. And what he invented in 1920 was a device that allows fluid to move in one direction and prevents any backflow. So, if there's water moving, still some is going to go backwards. But he invented a device that prevents the backflow from happening. And what he did was he made these tear-shaped loops so that fluid could move easily through the conduits. And the interesting thing is that there it is in 2021, scientists were looking at this invention and they actually thought, oh, this is comparable to the intestine of a shark. And the particular thing was that shark intestines moved digested meals through spring-shaped spirals or funnels. And so the connection was made between Tesla's invention and these intestines of the shark, because basically these valvular conduits, they block returning fluids, but allow fluid to move easily through the conduits. So now, of course, Tesla's designs were done for a steam engine in 1920, but he paused on his invention. And so the point is that these natural wonders of engineering are, at least from this article in the Smithsonian, they're going to be used to improve microfiltration systems so that microplastics can be leached out of wastewater. So this is the 2021 invention, building on the discovery and invention of Tesla in 1920, and then making the connection, which is quite nice in the present time, making the connection with something that occurs in the natural world, namely the intestine of sharks. So this is Srila Prabhupada's comment. Not only are you the creator of the creators, but you are also the creator of the material elements which so-called creators manipulate. So Srila Prabhupada's a little bit tough. He's not necessarily praising the creations, but he's just drawing attention to this necessity to give acknowledgement to the source of natural creation. Hence he's drawing attention to, it seems that something is being created by somebody in this world, but actually the creator of the material elements is Lord Krishna, and the current creators are manipulating those elements. So, of course, they weren't directly manipulating shark intestines, but the idea came from the intestines. So, Srila Prabhupada comments further. So, this is all on this section that we're reading today. Scientists utilize the physical elements or laws of material nature to do something wonderful. But actually, such laws and elements are also the creation of Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada doesn't let go. The proper acknowledgement has to be given. So, he says, this is actual scientific understanding. So there are laws that are already existing in nature. There are elements that are already existing in nature, and these are the creations of Krishna. And there's a second example, also coming from Inventions in 2021. There was a team of scientists who raised some painted lady caterpillars because they wanted to look at the metamorphosis into a butterfly. And so they actually made some microscopic opening so they could actually enter into the chrysalis and observe the metamorphosis. And so they removed the outer casing of the caterpillar and put some transparent bioadhesive so that they could actually look through the opening. And they used something called speckle correlation reflection. So it's some way of bouncing light. So it's not a bright light that might disturb the metamorphosis, but some little specks of light, something like a firefly moving through a meadow or something. So very speckled reflection, so that they could use their microscopes to get a closer look. And in days, they saw cells line up to form scales in alternating patterns above and beneath the wings, just like shingles on a roof. And each scale then developed nanometer grooves. So scientists, they say, suspect, this is the Smithsonian article, they suspect that these grooves help the butterfly to shed water like microscopic rain gutters. That's a comparison being made, the roof, the shingles, and now you've got gutters. So the butterfly, the little scales, all perfectly arranged in different color combinations to form an overall pattern. They are raised and they develop these little grooves, which are like microscopic comparison to rain gutters, because they allow the caterpillars to keep dry. And scientists believe that this work, their observation through this microscopic opening to look at the metamorphosis of the caterpillar to a butterfly, it would actually allow possibly for new inventions, because this is how they're viewing it. The butterfly scales are a biological example of a material solution to multiple functions. This is the scientists. And it's all enabled by one structure. So what they're thinking, so this is how the scientists' thinking is going. So this is, looking at the brain of the scientists and the inventions that are coming. They're considering that the functions allow control over optical appearance and color. There's thermoregulation, and there's wetting and flight dynamics. So all of these just in one creature or one happening that they've observed. So they're thinking, how can they use this? So this is what they're going to come up with. Because the scales are made of chitin, it's considered the second most abundant biopolymer on Earth after cellulose. A new material could be made that's easy to change or refresh. Perhaps they can make a sprayable version, this is a scientist, that could be used on buildings, vehicles, and clothing to add waterproofing and provide a bit of color. So that's just an illustration of the scientific brain operating. So there's the scientist's name in this particular case is given. His name is Cole. He asked one to imagine, this is the scientist talk, how cool it would be to have the cells be grown in a drum from the scales and spray them on a surface and supply a trigger that makes the scales grow a certain color, texture, and have a wetting behavior. So this is the idea in drums. This is going to be done on a mass scale, and then somehow a trigger is going to be created that you can spray it on buildings and vehicles and clothing. Anyway, this is the scientific expansion of some natural element that's there. The creator being Krishna, which was Srila Prabhupada's point. So Srila Prabhupada continues. So he's driving the point home. Less intelligent men do not try to understand who created the brain of the scientist. They are satisfied simply to see the wonderful creation of the scientist. So generally one looks externally, oh, what a wonderful discovery. Oh, quite amazing. Who would have thought of that? Not going back to, okay, there's a brain operating there. Who created that brain? Who created the material elements that are being manipulated by the scientists? So this is what Srila Prabhupada is drawing attention to, and he puts it very blankly, less intelligent men do not try to understand. Okay. So continuing with Srila Vishwanath's thought or insight into Jambavan's comparison, where Jambavan's comparing himself to the Supreme Lord, he says, of destroyers, you are time, the ultimate destroyer, capable of doing it, whereas I am subject to annihilation. So Jambavan sees his position that way. So there's a description of the night of Brahma, which is the effect of the influence of time, because there's day and there's night of Lord Brahma. And it's as follows. So this is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 11, the 28th verse. At the end of the day, under the insignificant portion of the mode of darkness, the powerful manifestation of the universe merges in the darkness of night. By the influence of eternal time, the innumerable living entities remain merged in this dissolution, and everything is silent. So that's, the dissolution of the universe and what happens to the living entities, just remaining merged, suspended in that dissolution. So the description is of the dissolution of three worlds, Bhu, Bhuva, and Sva. So that means Patala Loka, Matya Loka, and Svarga. So lower planetary systems, middle planetary systems, and upper planetary systems. And this comes into effect through an incarnation of darkness. So, Lord Brahma's night, but there's also a personality who incarnates as darkness to allow this event to take place. So behind every creator, again, is Lord Krishna in some form. So it's Rudra, represented by the fire of eternal time, who takes over, who blazes over the three worlds. So actually, there's that incarnation. So at that moment in time, the sun rays and the moon glow completely disappear from the three worlds. Although the sun and the moon themselves, they continue to exist beyond the sphere of the three worlds that are being destroyed. And in the three worlds, all that remains is darkness, and it becomes filled with water, and there are indefatigable winds. That's how the description is at the end of Brahma's night. So the devastation that takes place is due to the fire emanating from the mouth of Sankarshan or Rudra, and this blazing fire from the mouth of Sankarshan rages for 100 years of the demigods. So that's 36,000 human years. So that's the dissolution of the three worlds. And following on this is the description: all the seas overflow and hurricane winds blow very violently, and that's for 72,000 human years. Thus, the waves of the sea become ferocious, and in no time at all, the three worlds are full of water. So this is the beginning of the partial devastation of the three worlds. And in this way, the duration of life for every living entity is exhausted, including that of Lord Brahma. So this is just expanding on Jambavan's comparison of that Krishna has that capacity to dissolve the worlds, and he himself, he's going to be one of the ones who's in that position, a much lower position at the time of dissolution. So I've just tried to describe it as it actually takes place. So to emphasize the role played by the Supreme Lord, the BBT purport that we just read draws attention to actually Kapila Muni, who's an incarnation of Krishna. And it addresses, Kapila Muni is addressing his mother Devahuti. And Sri Shonaka is narrating in Bhagavatam. And this is what Kapila Muni says: "It is because of my supremacy that the wind blows out of fear of me. The sun shines out of fear of me. And the Lord of the clouds, Indra, sends forth showers out of fear of me. Fire burns out of fear of me. And death goes about taking its toll out of fear of me." So that's also in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's what the BBT purport drew attention to sort of point to at least how it's translated, the text here in Jambavan's words, that Krishna is the subduer of all subduers. So this capacity to be the destroyer is highlighted through the statement of Kapila Muni. So the Supreme Lord, who descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge, that's Kapila Muni, he's giving the description of this capacity for him to be the destroyer. And it becomes clear that nature isn't working automatically. At least I hope it has, through this breakdown of the scientific brain and using material elements, and also the fact that there's this description of the dissolution of the world, which still relies on the behind aspect of Shankarshan and fire issuing from him, and then all the elements working progressively to bring about the dissolution. So it becomes clear nature's not working automatically without the superintendence. And above the demigods is the Supreme Lord. And because of his presence, everything is performed punctually and with regularity. So that's that fear of him. There's punctuality and regularity. And we have some experience of that in the temple. If you take Brahminical initiation, everything is required. Anything in relation to Lord Krishna, there's You have to be punctual and you have to be regular to perform the service. So the demigods function in the same way, whether it's Lord Indra or Lord Brahma or Vayu. Everything is done with regularity and punctually. So Jambavan, by saying Krishna is the supreme soul of all souls, he in fact is also echoing a statement made by Kapila Muni, an incarnation of Krishna. And this is what Kapila Muni says: the terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. For I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls. So Jambavan's echoing, you're the Supreme Soul of all souls, and this is Kapila Muni himself stating it. So the taking of shelter of the Lord is through the mystic yoga system, and surrendering to the Lord such that one's intelligence becomes purified. So the process is such that in the beginning of spiritual realizations, and Srila Prabhupada explains, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there's a leaning towards impersonalism. So it's very difficult to see that there's a person who's a superintendent of the whole cosmic creation. It's very difficult. So one leans towards impersonalism, even when one starts to, in the beginning, to get some spiritual realization. But further on, one realizes there are activities in spiritual life. It starts to become clear, oh, actually, there's some activities you perform on a spiritual transcendental plane, and these make up devotional life. And so one becomes then attached to the Supreme Lord, which is what's happened to Jambavan. You can hear he's quite attached to the Supreme Lord, and then one surrenders to him. So it's not an immediate thing, getting this understanding. I mean, we're getting Jambavan, he is at that point where there is that attachment to the Supreme Lord, and he has surrendered to him. So that's why he has these incredible insights. In one's own case, one may lean towards impersonalism. So this is from Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Krishna is saying, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is, and that the material manifestation is not independent. So, and these were some of the realizations of Jambavan. And to end Srila Prabhupada's comments, and this is from a purport in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, he writes, such a universal vision of Vasudev precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord. So these incredible insights that Jambavan has, he's making that comparison of his position in relation to the Lord. Srila Prabhupada said that having this kind of universal vision of the Supreme Lord, it precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord. And so Jambavan is in that position. So it's rather extraordinary, and I know it's very expansive, his insight. I've tried to paint the picture a little bit, going a little deeper into his insight, and I think I kept it fairly simple. But if there's any thoughts or comments on this topic.
Very nice class. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
My question, because the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord, and we are acting within Him, where does it come where it goes to like maybe how we express our duty? So like we say we or I, what's the proper expression when we claim something.
It's an interesting question that, if one's recognizing the Supreme Lord, then how does one actually um, express it that one may have some proprietorship over something or claim some position even. And I presume that the underlying assumption is that one doesn't wish to be offensive in any way to the Supreme Lord.
Right.
uh, well, that's very thoughtful. Well, I've heard my spiritual master say, like, for instance, somebody may give praise to one for some accomplishment, perhaps. And automatically one's mind goes and offers that praise at the lotus feet of one's spiritual master. Automatically. So the praise comes your way, but your mind takes it to the lotus feet of one's spiritual master. So you can put so that's in relation to other people's view of you. And your question is sort of if you yourself were to say, I am an accomplished filmmaker, or I am a filmmaker who has done 10 documentaries of this nature, or whatever, how one would say it, because it's kind of claiming some proprietorship or claiming accomplishment. So in material dealings, one can say the fact, I have executed 10 documentaries since my role is as a filmmaker. And then at the same time, mentally, one actually gives thanks to Srila Prabhupada, the whole disciplic succession going up to Krishna for kindly having allowed one to use the capacity that Krishna has given one in some way that one's using as an offering to Krishna. So it may be some subject matter that's not directly related to Krishna, but because Krishna consciousness has to do with utilizing one's capacity to do everything one does as an offering to Krishna, you know that that was your consciousness. So hence, even if you make the statement of what factually exists, how many documentaries you've done, or what your occupation is, you're mentally offering your gratitude to spiritual master, disciplic succession, and Krishna for having allowed you to use the capacity given by Krishna in order to make this offering. So it's kind of silently simultaneous. External is one thing, internal is, where the gratitude needs to go. And nobody, you don't have to express that volubly. It's internal.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because I feel that way, but sometimes, like, I feel like bad. Well, I don't know how to feel if I don't physically say it, So oftentimes I'll say we.
Well, persons can utilize the royal we, but if one's not in a royal position,
Yes.
it's maybe not completely appropriate, but one can find a way to express things without beating one's chest.
Yes.
And if one has the right attitude internally, it's not going to come across as beating one's chest.
Yeah.
And if persons, like in the current time, there's in the society we're living in, probably because of the very easy access to information through technology, persons have an inflated sense of their own capacity. And so there's a kind of societal illness where persons actually get very self-absorbed, but not absorbed in the correct way, but rather aggrandizing themselves. And this is like a societal illness at the present time. Like in different decades, different things go on. Like there's plagues and viruses. And at this time, it's a very subtle sickness. It's the sickness of seeing oneself as the greatest, the best, and the brightest, and the most capable. and and unfortunately, it leads to behavior that's not very pleasant.
Yeah.
It may be, deliberately undermining others. It may be always bullying one's way into the top position. It may be yeah. So that kind of current societal illness is very prominent. And so the antidote always is, by hearing transcendental knowledge, one can attempt to counteract it. I mean, I don't know how much enters if one is in that kind of psychic space with that kind of societal illness that's currently prevalent. I don't know how much enters. It may be a more serious psychiatric thing, but transcendental knowledge is above the level of the mind. So
yes,
if at least it's transcendental knowledge can keep entering.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.